there, Irene from This Mindful Muse, and today I want to talk to you about reincarnation from the actor's perspective. What the heck does that even mean? The concept of reincarnation explored through the actor's perspective, because I am an actor, a director, and a theater educator, and so I find it really useful to use some of my learning as a framing device to look at other learning. And so I'm going to share it with you today just in case it happens to be helpful. And if it is, have it, use it. If it's not, chuck it. Totally up to you. I would love to share that I did not grow up in a household where reincarnation was even a known concept. It was not a topic of conversation. And so I am coming into an understanding of this concept. And my goal here is to be very respectful for those who have this as an integrated belief as part of their religious practice or spiritual practice. Also to say to folks who, this may not be in alignment for, but they're just curious and want to learn, I think that's really beautiful. And for folks who say, gosh, I am curious and I'm looking to integrate this. This feels really in alignment for me. That's beautiful too. I think it's really important for us to honor and respect that no two people carry the same beliefs. Even if you were to go into a religious institution in a building and check on a pew, two people sitting right next to each other would have very different beliefs, even if they were taught the same thing, because we all have a unique perspective, a unique frame through which we view the world. I think that's really important to keep in mind as we practice tolerance and learn about others' beliefs. But I also think it's a beautiful part of the human experience. I don't know that we're meant to have the same beliefs as others. Even in the same household where the same religious practices were taught, you would still have two people sitting down to dinner together that would have different beliefs. How interesting is that? Now, I would like to share a little bit about my spiritual background because it might help you understand where I'm coming from and my perspective, my framework through which I view the world. Now, as I shared, I did not grow up in a household that discussed the topic of reincarnation. I did grow up in a household that practiced non-denominational Christian teaching. So we were a Christian household that also integrated North American, Native American, or American Indian practices, rituals, and teachings. And so from a very young age, I was seeing how these two very different belief systems could, in some ways, flow and be in communication with one another. I also noticed that there were portions and parts of teachings that felt really in alignment for me, and that there were portions and parts of teachings that were not. It also changed. If I would go to one particular denomination of a church, they would teach something in one way. Then I would go to another and it would be taught in a very different way. I was fortunate that I would go to lots of different denominations with different friends, and with my family checking out different churches as well. And so there was this sort of invitation to say, you can interpret it in your own way. Now, as an actor, interpreting text is really important. And your interpretation of a text might be different from someone else's, and that's really exciting and interesting. So I just kind of want to take that seed and shift gears to consider the actor's perspective of reincarnation from the actor's perspective. So let's kind of dive in. Now, when we think about an actor and we think about them approaching the work of performing in a play, the play starts with the text. The play starts with our interpretation of the text. Now, often you have a director who will help to shape and guide the performance, but actors still have a lot of power in terms of making choices. So I think it's really interesting when we think about the play itself. We start with the text, we start with the words, we start with our interpretation of the words from our unique viewpoint, the frame through which we view the world. And we do our best to consider, what does the character see in the world of the play? What is their perspective? What is the framework through which they view the world? We do our best to practice empathy and to practice sympathy and to put ourselves in the shoes of other people. As we are exploring the world, we're really taking into consideration the given circumstances. The who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who are the characters of this play? What are they trying to accomplish, or what is the major action of the play? What is the lesson? What is the takeaway? What is the journey? When is this play taking place in a timeline? Where is the action of the play occurring? Right? Get a little cultural context and location. Why? Why is it important that we tell the story, and why are we choosing to tell this story now? How? How are we going to go about embodying, developing, creating, sharing this story so that an audience is able to receive the message that we intend for them to receive? The who, what, when, where, why, and how, the given circumstances. Luckily for many actors, if you're fortunate, you have a dramaturg on your team. Now, there are different performance roles and creator roles, creative roles that feed into the creation of a play. And so I'm going to cover some of them in case you're unfamiliar with them. And if you're familiar with them, you'll say, oh yes, I know all about that. A dramaturg is someone who really leans into cultural context. They want to understand the playwright's perspective. Why did the playwright choose to write this play in this way about this topic at this time? What is it in their history or their beliefs or, I don't even know, political leanings or their upbringing or their trauma, the location that they're from, what they've experienced, life experiences that led them to write this play. We get to learn about the time and the place and the people, and why would they wear this particular clothing? Why would they eat this particular food? It's really useful to have that cultural context. So that's what our dramaturg does. Our director is looking at the world of the play and thinking about framing it from the outside. So they're thinking about the audience's viewpoint. How do I tell a clear story with all of these moving parts and pieces that is crisp, that is coherent, that makes sense from moment to moment to moment? So the director's on the outside helping to guide these actors so that this happens over here and moves to this over here, and then this is in communication with that. So it's a little bit of a juggling, but the viewpoint is from the outside of the play. The actor's perspective is from within the play. The actor is attempting to embody a character. They're pulling inspiration from the text itself. They are pulling from the text and saying, I'm going to interpret these words in a particular way. One of my favorite lessons to teach, especially young actors, as a theater educator, is that it is not what you say, it is how you say it. It is not what you do, it is how you do it. Intention is everything. So actors will know we use acting verbs. We might assign per line of text a verb, an action that we are taking, the way that we are attempting to accomplish our goal, the tactic that we are using to get what we want. This might inspire a particular reading of a line of text. The line of text might be the words, I love you. Those might be the words. And one actor might decide to perform that line of text through a reading as such. I love you. That means something very different from, I love you. Same words, very different deliveries. It is not what you say, it's how you say it. Saying the words I love you with sarcasm or with frustration or with annoyance is very different than saying it from a truly grounded, intentional place. So, wow. Even though we have the structure of the play, we have this text to draw from, actors really do have a lot of choice when it comes to discovering how they want to go about accomplishing their goal, how they want to go about utilizing their tactic to get what they want. So, actors have a lot of choice. They choose to embody a character, and they get to play pretend within the world of the play. And we'll come back to that in just a moment, but before we do, There are other roles that surround the actors who are playing pretend, right, in this pretend world, that help to make the world real for them. So you have set and costume and light and sound designers and builders and creators and implementers. You have individuals who teach a very specific kind of skill, like how to execute stage combat safely, how to build into a moment of intimacy, how to move via choreography. You have individuals who, if it's a musical, that might teach the music. Or you have to think about the fact that it was written, the music was written, and then there's someone who plays the music, and then the actors respond to it. There are so many different roles, and it's so cohesive. It really is a collaborative art form. Now, the same goes for movement. The same goes for singing. You might have someone who writes the notes. You have someone who writes the lyrics. Then you have people who teach the notes and lyrics. And you have people who sing the notes and lyrics. There are so many levels and layers of support to help create this imaginary world that the actors are playing through, with the intention of telling a very specific story for the audience to receive. Now, we think about an actor who gets excited about a play and decides that they want to be a part of it. Now, you might choose to be a part of a play for a number of reasons, or choose to audition for it, or choose to put yourself out there. And here are a few of them. Let's say there's a particular role that you love. You love this character. You think they're interesting. You think they're funny. You think they're debonair. You think they're dangerous. Whatever it might be. You think, gosh, this is such a fascinating character. And I know I'd have fun playing them. It might be that you choose to portray a particular character because they're so like you. You say, I could do that in my sleep. I could play this character all day, every day. I'm so like them. I can pull from my real life experience to make it real for the audience. Sometimes you choose a character that is very different from who you are. You choose a character that's different because it might be a challenge. It might help you to develop your skills as a performer. It might allow you to put yourself in the shoes of a circumstance and situation that is so different from your world that you otherwise wouldn't have the pleasure of exploring and experiencing. You might choose to be a part of a play because you love working with a director. They create a safe environment, or they're really fun, or they're challenging, or they're just incredibly creative, and you think, gosh, I just love their work and I just want to work with them. I think that what they do is fantastic or important or makes a difference or is beautiful. You might choose to be a part of a production because you like the cast members. Gosh, I just love working with this other actor. I would play opposite them in any role. I just want to play with them because they're fun, or because they're serious, or because I learned from them, or because they're talented. So you might choose to be participating in the play for a number of reasons. There are so many different reasons. So it could be, this is an alignment, this feels like me, or this is so different for me and I'd love to challenge myself, or, I may as well lean into this skill set. Like, I'm a very strong mover and this is a very dance heavy show, and I want to show that skill off. Or, I could learn to be a better mover. So I'm going to do my best to challenge myself and learn and develop this new skill. So actors are supported by the creation, the design and creation of this imaginary world, which makes it very real. And yet, they know that they are playing pretend. Actors on stage know that they are playing pretend. They are reciting lines that were written for them. And discovering within the structure the flexibility to practice empowered choice making. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. If the stage directions say, put the envelope on the table, well, if you take the envelope like it's a sacred object and you guide it down with reverence, that's very different from slamming it down and walking away. They mean very different things. And so it kind of goes to show just how much choice we get to have as performers. And now if we were to shift our attention and look at this concept as if the actor were the soul. I love the idea and concept the more that I am developing as a spiritual practitioner in person. I continue to encounter the vastness, the concept, the idea, and the feeling of the vastness of our souls, that we are so big and powerful. And yet, for the purposes of learning, for the purposes of developing, for the purpose of playing, we can choose to embody or play a character. The actor knows that it is the actor. However, when you are on stage and you are performing on stage, you are playing pretend, you are thinking from the perspective of the character. How would they respond? You are in the moment, presently grounded with the live dynamic of the other energies. And, try as you might, things change. You might plan for things to go a particular way, but things happen. And it becomes exciting because then you get to figure out, how do I respond to that? What do I do when this happens or goes wrong? It makes it more exciting and interesting. And it's an opportunity for creativity. So if we were to think about the vastness of the soul, the actor is the soul. The actor knows that it is the actor. The soul knows it is the soul. The soul is beyond the character. But when you are in character, if you spend too much time thinking as the actor about, for example, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to make for dinner, and I still have to walk the dog, and I really should call my mom back. Ooh. Any actor will tell you, you spend too much time in your actor brain, you start overthinking it, you start losing your connection to the world that you're playing into. You might miss a cue. You might forget a line, right? You might lose yourself in it. And so it's important to stay present in the moment. However, at intermission or at the end of the show, when you are in the dressing room and you are taking off the costume, you know that you were playing pretend. You know that that play was for the greater purpose of a shared experience for your own personal development, but also to explore a topic or to teach a lesson to the audience, or to connect with them, or to give them permission to go through something, to explore trauma or a particular experience or topic. And so I like this idea, and I hope that it's a helpful framing mechanism, that if the soul is the actor, you might choose to embody as a particular character for a number of reasons. You might say, I really like the aesthetic of this time period, and I'm going to have fun. Or, you know what? I love this character. They're so much like me. Or, this character is so different from me, and I love that I get to play something so different from myself. Or, you know what? I'm really going to challenge myself. I'm going to learn through this performance how to master this particular skill. Or, I'm really good at this skill, and I think that the production would really benefit from having someone who happens to be so good at this particular skill. Or, I really love working with this director. I really love working with this other actor. You know what? I will embody with them wherever they want to embody. They are in my troupe, my actor troupe, or my soul pod, and we love to embody together. So it's the idea that we choose, knowing that we are the actor and the soul, to play a role and a character in this collaborative art form of life, where the goal is to explore particular topics, to teach particular lessons, to learn skills, to further develop our understanding of ourselves and of the world around us. And I find that a really beautiful concept. And that even if you come in with agreements or contracts, even if you elect to embody with a particular family in a particular place, right? That cultural context of the play, even if you make all of these empowered choices, when you are in the doing of the thing, while there is structure, there is also flexibility. There are things that happen that might surprise you. Oh gosh, the amount of times something just goes awry in a live theater performance. It's part of what makes it exciting. That's why it's exciting, because we can't know everything that's going to happen, even if we agree to all of these things in advance. You agree to play that role, I'm going to play this role. We're going to explore this dynamic, right? How exciting and interesting. We also have useful, I think about like the creators and the designers and the crafts folks as, spirit guides or support systems, or part of, who builds the world in which we embody, the 3D experience, who brings that to life so that we can really play pretend while we're here. We can really get into character and be present in the moment, creating this live dynamic right here, right now. I think it's really interesting that quantum physicists speak about how in the 3D we have time. However, they suggest that outside of the 3D, there is no past and future. There is only the present. They are layered up, all of these experiences, like a layered sandwich that you could take a bite of, or a layered cake that you could take a bite of. The idea then opens us up to the concept of multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, that's the multiverse, multiple universes. And if you're open to the idea of lifetimes, multiple lifetimes. That what you choose to do in the present moment, there's only the present, is impacting other characters that you've played before. You could heal yourself forwards and backwards in time. When we're in the 3D, it might look like this. But when we are in the quantum realm, it's all stacked up on top of one another. How interesting is that concept? I find it fascinating. So the idea is that we have varying perspectives, that the soul is vast. The soul can choose to embody in multiple roles. When it's in it, it's really focusing on being present as that role. But I love the idea, the concept that the soul is so vast, perhaps it's in multiple places at once. Or perhaps, if that doesn't work for you, it's focusing on just one at a time. But the idea is that in order to play pretend, we have these guides that help us to develop really particular skills. So this kind of leans into, when you think about your soul guides, you might have someone who is here to teach you a particular skill, to support you in one very specific area, that is their area of expertise. That might be your choreographer who says, I'm going to teach you how to do this movement beautifully. Or that might be the director who says on the outside, I really want to make sure that this dynamic is really clear in this lifetime, like your guardian angel or something, or maybe another guide who just has a different perspective from the outside because they're not in as a character in the world. They're on the outside shaping the thing and saying, all right, let's make sure we get a little bit of this over here. And although this is happening over here, we need this to happen over there. They're thinking of the audience's perspective, right? So the broader collective and what they might be taking or learning from this dynamic playing out. Then we also have, I like to think about, now that I work in the Akashic Records, and if you've never heard of the Akashic Records, it's the idea of the file, imprint, or record of everything that has ever been and everything that will ever be. And this makes me think of a dramaturgy. The idea that there's soul context. There's a bird's eye view of, there's character in the moment, in the play. There's director, more from the outside, or designer, more from the outside, right? To help to create that picture or that world. Bird's eye view from the top helps me to think about something like the work of a dramaturg who is pulling cultural context. Why is this important? Why was this written in this particular way? Why is this actor in particular, in this role? That it's a bird's eye view looking down of context. Why this is important. Why are we telling this story now? Why did they use this or that over this or that, right? Interesting concept. So all of this is to say that I find the idea as an actor interesting and useful, knowing that I love to play pretend as different people. And I love to challenge myself as a performer, as a whole human person that is looking to tell stories, that sometimes even you may elect to play the villain because you think that the story is really important to be told. Some folks are like, I don't want to play the villain. That doesn't work for me. Other folks say, this story needs to be told and it cannot be told without the villain. The lesson cannot be learned without the villain being present. I will play an exceptional villain. And then I take that off in the dressing room because I know that that's not who I am, but I'm willing to play the role to tell the story, that we can play these varying roles for our own development, for the shared collaborative art form and dynamic, and then for the greater storytelling that's occurring, the opening of eyes and hearts in the audience, for them to consider the journey of a character or a group of people or a circumstance or situation. And how beautiful that can be. And the fact that we might choose to do it again and again and again with the same people, or sometimes we mix it up. Maybe we'll do it with someone else this time. Well, there's a new actor. Let's see how our dynamic is when we work together. What do we teach one another? What do we learn from each other? Very interesting concept. Now, if this doesn't work for you, if this is like not your bag and the theater verbiage is totally out there for you, then I also want to offer, I think about the same thing when I consider a video game. When I consider that a world was constructed and built very mindfully, that there are boundaries and there are rules of engagement that have been set and that you agree to. When you choose your avatar and you play this game and you enter into this world, although you know that you are the player, you can't help but get invested. You can't help but have your heart pounding out your chest when you are fighting the big boss, right? Or when you are attempting to achieve your goal, when you are using tactics. And that there may be prescribed moves that will get you this or that outcome, but you can do them in a particular order that you choose or in a timing of your choice. That you might choose to embody as this avatar, and you might really like that avatar. So maybe you use that avatar every time. Or maybe you say, I want to switch it up. I'm going to use a different avatar. Maybe you get to build your own avatar, which brings me to tabletop gaming. Specifically Dungeons and Dragons, or that kind of a structure where you get to build your character very intentionally, knowing that if you have the most perfect character who's great at everything, the game gets very boring very quickly. It's not interesting or exciting. We're looking to develop dynamic characters that feed into a group, that feed into the group dynamic, that feed into the group cohesiveness so that they can work together to accomplish goals. So some folks might be really skilled in one area and then other folks are really skilled in another area. You can play someone who is very similar to you. You could build someone who is very different from you, a kind of character that you wish to explore or characteristics that you choose to explore. So this is a really fun concept in the world that we inhabit. I find it really interesting that we have these make pretend, make believe worlds where we get to embody characters in order to learn something for ourselves, in order to play, and in order to just experience a world. And I like to think that as we embody in this life, it's something very similar. Now, I also want to add on here, just kind of bopping back to the earlier conversation, there are some belief systems that are very open about embracing reincarnation. Again, if this does not fit you, I hope that this was just a useful framing device for you to consider it and to consider the beliefs of others. And please know that I have found lots of supporting evidence for early Abrahamic traditions, Kabbalistic in particular, early Christianity, the agnostics, and more, that do engage with the concept of reincarnation. Now, of course, again, as always, if this serves you and you find it interesting, take it, use it, have it, or just become curious about it and look more into it to see if there is something in alignment for you there. And if not, I hope that you learned something new or shifted your perspective or considered something a little bit different. Thank you so much for sharing time, space, and energy with me here today. I know it has been a minute since I posted an episode. I was grieving. And so I really took my time and did not rush. And then I used that grief as an opportunity to come back and to connect on that topic specifically. The following month, because I really aim for once a month with everything else I have going on, I was a guest on a podcast. And so I said, well, that'll serve as an episode. I won't create another episode myself. And then following that, I have been a busy little bee. So I am already certified as an Akashic Records reader, as a quantum healer, as quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner, as a mindfulness and meditation coach, and even a Reiki practitioner level 1, although I don't usually practice, I just integrate that into my work. I decided I wanted more badges for my Girl Scout sash of, my own spiritual development and what I think is helpful for me and what I hope and intend to be helpful for others as I serve as a practitioner. And so I recently was very busy learning new forms of hypnosis. I got certified in non-therapeutic. That would be issues from this lifetime. So maybe something from childhood that you're hanging on to. I got certified in intra-life, which is the before life planning phase when you get together with your soul team and you say, what kind of character do I want to play? What kind of play do I want to be a part of? What story do I want to tell? What do I want to experience? Who do I want to play in this world with? and past life regression. So I already did QHHT, but this is a more broad and general past life regression certification. I also got certified in spiritual life coaching that I aim to use more intentionally when I'm doing a reading with someone, to be able to guide them and to offer structure and follow-ups, and your guidance is probably the best way to put it. And then intuitive energy healing. Now, I had already been guided through the Akashic Records to engage with intuitive energy healing, but now I'm also certified in it. And so I can do that as a standalone practice as well. So all that's to say, if that's a whole bunch of gobbledygook, I got some new badges to put on my Girl Scout sash, continuing to play the role of the eternal student of the universe. That is a role that I enjoy playing. And for anyone who's multi-passionate out there, I want to share with you a clip that I received in an Akashic Records reading for myself recently. I was feeling, as I'm doing this spiritual development, and I love to work as an artist, and it's such a beautiful space for me to spend time in and to feel connected to community. I started to have this fear develop that, gosh, if I'm doing all these spiritual things, is it taking away from my theater work? And or if I were to take a theater gig, because I had turned a few down or taken a pause, if I were to take a gig, would that take away from my spiritual development? And here's the message that I got from the records. They're so funny with me. They have a sense of humor. I went into the records and they were having a costume party, my guides. And they love to use humor with me. And they were kind of saying, we're celebrating all the roles that you play and inviting you to celebrate the same. They were also celebrating all the roles that they play. And I thought, how interesting, the concept of all of these roles that we play. They then said, you've been questioning all of these different roles. And they said, what you don't see is how each of these roles feeds beautifully into one another. They showed me the recycle symbol of the triangle with the arrows. Then they put at each one of those locations, that points of the triangle, a different role that I happen to play. So in this scenario, it was me as an educator, me as a healer, and me as a theater artist. Then they put me inside of the triangle. So I was inside the triangle looking at these different points. And from above, I could see how the arrows, instead of just pointing around in the triangle, they were pointing out and in, out and in, out and in to each one of these different roles. And the message here was, you can't always see how all of these varying roles are feeding into one another. But baby, you were built to be multi-passionate. You were built to be a Renaissance woman. You were not intended to simply do one thing. You were made to have multiple passions, to be multi-passionate. So I don't know if that's helpful or useful for you, but if you happen to be someone like me who is multi-passionate, and maybe you find moments where you think, are these helping and feeding into one another? Is doing one pulling away from something else? I had another reading with someone where the message for them was that the spiritual work that they were doing was the seasoning, but the passion was the meat in the stew. And they were being reminded that the spiritual learnings and practices were really helping to season their passions, helping to add specific flavors. And that also the stew wouldn't be a stew without the passion. It wouldn't be the stew without the meat, right? And so, or without the sustenance, right? So if you're not a meat eater, then you can think about it as the vegetables that would be there. But the idea was that the stew would not be a stew without your passions. And that whatever development you're doing, it is adding the flavoring, the seasoning, the salt and the pepper, the spice, the dynamic of flavors that is unfolding. That is what this does. This helps to elevate your passions. So I don't know if that's helpful for anyone, but I thought that it would be a useful thing to share here just in case it happens to be. All right, let's wrap this up. I just wanted to give you a little update. Thank you again for sharing time, space, and energy with me here today. I hope that this was a useful framing device for you to engage with the concept of reincarnation, whether that's something you are familiar with or not. If you are interested in learning about hypnosis, I'm going to have some new offerings on my website, so visit thismindfulmuse.com. And if you're simply interested in learning more about soul context and getting an Akashic Records reading, go to the same place, click on the Akashic Records reading button. I'm getting lots of bookings. This time of year is a great time to connect. Any time of year is a great time, but this time of year messages can come through. They zip through very quickly and easily. And whenever you move into the records, your guides and guardian angels and loved ones are in celebration because they're so happy to see you and to connect with you. All right, I'm going to let you go. Have a gorgeous rest of your day. I love you so much, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.